Welcome to Between Plays Stock Market Strategies. With us today, we have Dr. Luisa Moreno, CEO of Graphano Energy Corp. Hello and welcome to Between Plays Stock Market Strategies. Today we have with us Dr. Luisa Moreno. How are you doing today?
Very well. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. No, thank you for coming. I'm looking at your resume and it's quite impressive. So I could not memorize it by heart. I am actually going to read it, and I'm sure that all the viewers are going to want to hear your resume because it's quite, like I said, it's quite impressive. So let me go into here. So today, Dr. Luisa Moreno, you have over 12 years experience in technical economic research, expertise in strategic minerals and related processes. You were 7 years in the financial sector and as an analyst, and basically doing research at firms, including 4 years covering specialized fields of industrial minerals within the metals and mining sector. Strong insight into materials, the processing, metallurgy, and precious metal. You've published a number of advanced technical reports on key strategic material, basically sought after consulted to numerous mining and processing companies and industrial end users. You're a frequent guest speaker on TV, international conferences, often quoted in national and international media and newspapers, physics engineer and PhD in material science and mechanics from Imperial College, London, and United Kingdom. Very impressive resume. I mean, you leading Graphano into the next stages, being the CEO of this company, we couldn't have, for investors, we couldn't have asked for anyone better.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And basically, Graphano, is it possible to maybe give me a little bit of background on Graphano? Because I mean, the investors out there know, everybody does a little bit of research and it's public knowledge and stuff like that. But it was a spin-off originally from Manganese X, I believe.
Correct. That is true. So Manganese X is a junior exploration company. They obviously have manganese as their main mineral, and they are developing their manganese project to produce a product also for batteries. So they had the property, the graphite property, and decided to spin it out so that they could be a bit more focused on the development of that asset and to bring more value as well to the shareholders. So we spin it out, and Graphano was created. So the company has several exploration claims really adjacent to what it is the only operating facility for graphite, processing facility for graphite in North America, between US and Canada, which is very strategic for us as well. Not just the potential synergies with that plant, that the producer just right next door, but also the fact that there is ready available infrastructure. So there is open pit in our site. There was production there. We have a historical resource, and there's so many sites to explore. So it's very, very exciting. So we believe that once we find a resource, we could potentially reach production rather quickly, either to a synergy with the producer or even utilizing the infrastructure that we had there. So that is what was previously a mill on site as well. So there is buildings there and all of that, and we could convert that into our own processing plant also. So it's very exciting.
Wow, that's very, very cool. And the other company that's there on the site, is that Imerys?
That's right. Imerys is the company. They have decided to spin out their processing plants and remain in the mine as well, and and it seems that Northern Graphite is going to be the company that's going to be taking that, as well as other graphite resources of Imeris in Africa.
Okay.
So that is, I think it's positive. It shows that continuation. Northern Graphite has had support, from investors to continue that plant, and that's very positive.
And the infrastructure, I mean, you're basically driving right through, like to your claims. I mean, the infrastructure is there because it goes right through the main doors, I guess, of Imeris. So
yeah, so
there's
that entrance is in our claims.
So that
yes, it's really close. We're really immediately adjacent. In fact, they used to own those claims, and so they dropped them at one point to another. I don't want to speculate how that happened, but it did happen, and some vendors got hold of it, and eventually end up in the hands of Manganese X and now Graphano.
Okay, that's really interesting. And the actual property is close to, well, the people that live in Quebec, of course, will know where Mont Laurier is. But for the people that are watching in, let's say, the United States or in Europe, it's very, very close to Montreal and Ottawa. About what, an hour and 50 minutes or an hour and a half?
Between two and a half hours drive. So effectively, you can fly either to Ottawa if you are in Toronto, or to Montreal, and then just drive directly to the site. So that is unique for a mining project. There's not a lot of mining projects in Canada. You could say, we can drive right there, and so that is very positive in that sense. It just means that building infrastructure, transportation and power infrastructure will be negligible if you were to develop our own mine and processing plant.
Absolutely, because there's electrical power there, there's railway infrastructure there. I mean, I live in Montreal, and I've driven past Mont Laurier many times in my life. Every summer we're driving past there. It is really easy to access. Even for a regular person that's just driving. I mean, that whole area is just full of people. It's a bustling economy, the northern section of Montreal. I mean, to have something that close is
an advantage.
Exciting.
Yes, I mean, especially if you compare with other projects, other graphite projects in North America. There are not many that can say, we are right by a highway or roads, and we have all the power infrastructure. I mean, we literally do. Power lines cross our property, and so that is very beneficial when you are developing mining projects, just because the nature of mining tends to be, where you explore is away from urban areas. But fortunately for us, having been, because we are close to a producer, and all of the areas surrounding, Imeris, are prospective areas for graphite to feed, like I said, the only mine, the only processing plant in North America.
Yeah, it's very attractive because there's no worries about, would we want something so close? No, historically, there's always been something there. So there's nothing to worry about.
Exactly.
So it's very good that, investors know that. So, I was looking at graphite, and there's different types of graphite. There's flakes, large flakes, there's veins. And is that important for investors to know, or people to know that are just interested in learning about mineralogy and stuff like that, for batteries at least?
For that application, no, definitely. Not all graphite is the same. When we talk about natural graphite, usually it's separated into three main sort of categories: the amorphous, the lump veiny type graphite, and the flake. And so the one that is used for batteries is flake graphite. And you know, and that is actually exactly what we have. And even within then the flake graphite, of course, you have different flake sizes, and there is the optimum size for that application as well. Usually medium large flake is good. And the purities of the graphite, you know, in the lack of impurities, all these things are important. You know, investors need to understand, should try and understand and ask the right questions. So in terms of impurity, you really don't want like sulfur, for instance. You know, it is important to ask developers, you know, those questions, you know.
Okay, and I'm just trying to find over here so you've done a phase 2. Graphano is up to a phase 2 drilling project that we
actually in the phase 1.
Oh,
so what we did is,
yes,
you know, I know it can be confusing. So we did 2 phases of trenching, geophysics, and more of the exploratory type tests to identify drilling targets. So we did phase 1 in summer, phase 2 in the fall, and now in winter we are drilling. So drilling started February and it extended to March. It has been a little bit slow, just because, you know, many reasons, but you know, labs are very busy with assaying, and drilling companies are very busy as well, and that availability it's not all there. So we have experienced some delays on that front, but we are moving forward. We are drilling, and we are looking forward to share with the market the results that we will be getting shortly.
And basically the company that's there is Activation Laboratories, Act Labs in Ancaster, Ontario. That's where it's all being sent out, right?
Yes.
Yes.
That is the laboratory that's going to be doing the assay work for us. So they have, as we speak, they have received the samples. And so it's just a couple of weeks here before we start really being able to see those results and sharing with the market, you know, the results. I mean, we feel very comfortable, you know, saying that, you know, it is a graphite valley, you know, there is graphite there, has been production. Most likely every single hole is going to have some sort of graphite, but obviously what we're looking for is high grade, flaky, nice graphite, and that's what we're looking for. But, you know, just looking at the core, yes, we can see it's graphite there. We just don't know at this point what the grades are, and that is important because that contributes ultimately to the economics.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And of course, we have the importance of the grades of the graphite and everything like this. I think that's something that's not really talked about very much, is cathode, anode. I mean, a lot of people don't understand battery technology. Like, you know, we think that we do, but, you know, then when we really get into it, wait, hold on, the cathode has only a certain percentage of lithium. And then, you know, you have, you know, the oxidization in the anode. And so to understand a little bit of this, the anode, okay, so the cathode of the battery has, you know, like nickel, manganese, you know, traditionally cobalt and stuff like that. But, you know, it seems like cobalt is from cattle and Tesla and everybody's going out.
They're trying to engineer it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Engineer it out. Yes. As they say, as Martin said in the last interview, but you have more manganese that's being put into there. That's the cathode area. But correct. In the anode area, it's all graphite.
Yes, for the most part, you know, so graphite is the preferred, the cheapest, the most durable at this point. But they also have been adding, you know, silicon, about 5 to 10% It's still a small percentage,
Yes.
just to support and increase, energy densities. But you could never use 100. Well, not at this point. Something might change in the future, but you couldn't use 100%. Silicon. It would disintegrate.
Yeah. There's a lot. There's a lot of research. Years of research ahead.
Exactly. But for the most part, it is graphite, hands down.
Okay.
Anywhere from 100% to 90 to 100%.
Wow. Okay. So that's it. So now when we break that down, we have synthetic graphite, natural graphite. From what I'm understanding is Asia, like China, uses a little bit more on the synthetic graphite, but Western society really tends to go towards the natural graphite. But supposedly in the future, what I'm seeing is that there might be a balance, like, try to a 50-50 type thing, which would increase, because if Asia is going to be increasing there, I mean, it's just going to be more like the demand for graphite is what I'm trying to say is going to shoot over the natural graphite is going to shoot over the next, to 2030, 2040.
Yeah, it is preferred. So synthetic graphite is produced from pet coke, which is from oil refinery, is a hydrocarbon, and we are trying to move away from those types of emissions and hydrocarbon industry. So natural graphite is effectively preferred. Even in China, I think they would prefer it as well. It's just that it's not as available as the synthetic. So 1 million tons of graphite was produced worldwide in 2021. And for the adoption of electric vehicles in the next 10, 15 years, we will have to produce 1 million tons of graphite for one application.
Wow.
Can that be all natural graphite? It's a lot of graphite to be found. It's a lot of production, and it's being very difficult to develop those resources. So what many of producers around the world, even in China, tend to prefer is to use a combination, a 50-50 sort of combination between the synthetic and the natural, to give you the cost reduction and performances that, are ideal for them. But even that it's quite a lot of graphite, of natural graphite that has to be mined in the little while here. And so there is tremendous demand. And so we are a Graphano unique position to build that, to develop those resources, to find them first. Clearly, we're still exploring. We do have some historical resources that need to be, brought into compliance. But it is a unique space because these things are needed now and more going to be needed going forward. And so it's very exciting.
Yes, because I'm going to be putting up over here what I'm seeing from the graphite shortage, and the investors will be able to see this, and it's just quite remarkable. I mean, by 2040, 2030 alone, we just do not have the supply to meet demand. And we're going to have to open up tons of graphite mines. And talking about that leads me to another area here. I mean, we can't rely on certain countries anymore. And the Western society, it seems as though Canada is going to have to be a major player when it comes to graphite, which puts Graphano in a great strategic position for today and the future, because we don't, in the future, it's possible there could be expansions, there could be more acquisitions, there could be all kinds of things in the future, because we need way more graphite than exists at the moment.
Absolutely. I mean, you were right. There are important aspects in the development of these resources, not just from the perspective, obviously, of supplying, the supply chain for electric vehicles. That is that demand, but where they are produced is important, not just because of the political risk, call it. A lot of people talk about China. Yes, of the 1 million tons of graphite produced last year, 82% of that was produced in China.
Wow.
So China clearly dominates the production of graphite in the world. They consume a lot of it. And they had increased from 2020 to 2021. They added another 60,000 tons of production.
Wow.
And they are continuing to supply the world. But the underlying question is, how long can China continue to supply the world with graphite and many of those resources? The
Yes.
other aspect of it is really the footprint, the emissions footprint. Like if you are mining and processing it in China, which uses a lot of coal as part of their energy. So there's a lot of emissions attached to the processing of that material. And then you have to ship it all the way to Europe and North America for the automotive industry. There is more emissions. So if you start looking at the CO2 emissions or greenhouse emissions, period, footprint of these materials, when we are trying to go greener, that is a very important aspect. And that's why Tesla and other manufacturers have said that they want to build supply chains locally to decrease that aspect of the greenhouse emissions. And so in Quebec, we are fortunate that 100% of the energy of the grid comes from hydropower. That is clean can be.
Yeah.
And so when you are using that to process your graphite, and then the graphite is being used locally in Quebec and in Ontario, that fortunately have now attracted battery production manufacturing, that is the ideal situation. And so that again puts Graphano in a very strong position to supply manufacturers, their best scenario, which is locally.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we can't, I mean, any serious investor knows that Stellantis is pouring in something like, the number, I always have to go and check the number because I can't even believe it, like $1 billion or something. Anyways, an astronomical amount of money in the billions, just in Ontario alone to get everything up. And then we have Ford also doing it, and plants in Missouri's and the whole 9 yards. I mean, we're in exciting times. There's also the fact that China has also played politics when it comes to withholding minerals. 2009, 2010. I mean, they did it with Australia. So it's a little bit. And I think this is why it's gone on the critical minerals list, right? Graphite is now on the 2022. As of February, we're on the critical mineral list. So that adds also more added value importance for the United States and the Canadian government after the treaty that they've signed in 2020 that says, critical mineral list, whatever's on there, like we need to get this going. And my question with that is, once all these samplings come out and everything is great, I mean, does that give us an advantage being on a critical mineral list? Does that, give us something? There's any grants from the governments or anything that we can tap into?
Wow, that's a very good question. I think it is possible. I think the government is probably not very comfortable still in investing or helping junior miners. But I think that as we advance to production, they might want to help us in terms of infrastructure which we don't really need much. We might have
Absolutely.
to pave some roads here and there, maybe, but frankly, um, but that's the sort of help that the
Like
government
pilot plants
probably
or
would be
something like
looking
that.
to do. Sorry?
Like pilot plants, maybe, like if we're to advance the project, it might be, I don't know.
Yeah, so it is possible. I mean, we saw the federal and the provincial governments of Ontario supporting, I believe, was First Cobalt, if I'm not wrong,
Okay,
with
yeah.
their plants.
All right.
That was 10 million, and part of that is grants
Wow.
and very favorable interest-free loans.
Wow, that's good
Um,
money.
that is good money.
Yeah.
And so you also see, I think 100 million went, but that was more for Lion Electric with their
With Lion Electric.
battery manufacturing facility,
Yeah.
100 million out of 185 million. So I think as, in the mining, as we advance forward to build our plant, we might get some support, some favorable loans. In Quebec, it's amazing. Quebec is so advanced in supporting their mining industry, and from various stages, frankly.
Oh,
And I
nice.
think they're probably one of the best provinces in terms of support for the mining sector.
Well, I have one last question. Well, maybe I have two. When Because this is mostly coming from investors that I speak to.
Okay.
They don't. A lot of people ask, is graphene a mineral, or is graphene created by graphite? Should we be investing in graphite to get graphene? There's a lot of people don't understand just the difference. Like, where does it come from? If we're investing in Graphano, so to speak, and the
Yeah.
future, because graphene, I mean, like, graphene is just it's a disruptive sector technology, and the future of graphene is just absolutely incredible. As hard as a diamond, soft as coal, elastic. Anyways, it fascinates me. So basically, graphite, the demand for graphite, if it comes from graphite, I mean, it should just, graphite is going to be not just important in the EV sector, but it's going to be important to technology and all these other things that it does.
It is true. Without a doubt, graphene, I also believe is going to be central in all of these, call it fourth industrial revolution that we're going through. And yes, you are correct. It comes from graphite. Now, graphene technology, which is essentially around the production of graphene, is very important. And companies that have successfully developed graphene technology and are able to produce it in economic fashion, they are in a very good position. So the challenges today of graphene is the mass economic production of it, so that it could be used across the board. But what is graphene? Graphene effectively is just an atomic size layer of atoms, carbon atoms. So it's a very small, thin layer of graphite, call it. And so in that sense, in terms of volume of demand, that is not really the key sort of point for graphite or graphene. It's really just the technology of it. So when you are in the business of producing graphite, you are in a good business potentially if you develop the right technology or adopt the right technology to also produce graphene. And the applications are many. So there will definitely be some volume there, but the key is that it's really a very small atomic level product.
Okay.
In that sense.
Okay.
Now, so there are some products out there that are called nano, I guess, graphene, which is interesting. So that's a little bit more in terms of volume, and also has many applications in many manufacturing applications, automotive as well as electronics, and so forth. That is definitely the future.
So you know what, that this is great. So I mean, you have money, you have cash in for the company, the balance sheet, the financials look great. I mean, we have samples that's coming up from activation, I believe it is activation.
Yeah,
Because I get confused in my head. I want to say Activision. You know, I grew up with
you can just call them Act Labs.
Act Labs. That's much better. I'll call them Act Labs.
Yeah.
So the future of Graphano at the moment is very exciting.
It is.
You know, yeah, I don't.
It's a perfect entrance point for investors because now there's a lot of expectations while we're going to drill and what results are going to be, but the future is bright. There is no doubt that graphite is important, as important as lithium.
Oh yeah.
You know, there's a lot of attention in lithium. Graphite is not getting, even the prices of graphite has not significantly increased as we see it yet with lithium, just because lithium is getting that much more attention. But graphite is absolutely required, and Graphano is in a unique position to be able to supply the markets rather quickly. We are not trying to, you know, accumulate an extremely large resource. What we're trying to do is to find a manageable resource, and we don't have to have the largest resource. You know, that usually comes from the need to support a large capex infrastructure around you. So the more you produce, the better, because then you can pay for all the infrastructure costs that you need to do. We can start producing with, you know, a small resource and supplying to the market as soon as possible, and that is our advantage, and that's what we want to do.
That's great because the revenue coming in increases the shareholders' wealth. And at this moment, when I look at your the share price, I mean, we're at support right now. I mean, it's very stable. I mean, this is definitely an entry point when you have investors looking for a support level. I mean, you can't get better than this at the moment. It's incredible.
I agree.
And over 20% insiders, I believe, hold the stock too, which is quite exciting too for the regular investor.
That's right. So we have, you know, a number of investors that are key, and they have hold large positions, and they are supporting the story. They're not selling. They believe that, you know, there is great upside here for the company. So which brings that stability.
Okay, well, you know what? Basically, I think we should end off there because I mean, if investors don't see how, you know, we say bullish, I mean, Graphano is, I don't know what else to tell them. Because you know, for me, it's very exciting. Looked at the company, looked at everything, you know, watched graphite. I mean, looked at the anodes, and I mean, you can't be more better positioned. You have existing infrastructure. I mean, you know,
there is all of that. I mean, and like we talked about, the political risk.
Yeah.
You know, the need to decrease, you know, the emissions, you know, the greenhouse emissions and all of that. The need to develop a local supply chain, and how, you know, the production of these minerals, you know, graphite, you know, specifically here, it's so important for the auto industry of Canada and North America, frankly.
Absolutely. You know, I'd like to invite you to, you know, do future follow-ups as Graphano progresses through its stages.
Absolutely. We should do this, I don't know, every quarter.
Oh, that, you know, sounds great to me.
Here and update your, you know, listeners and viewers in the progress of Graphano until we reach production. It's going to be really interesting for you to do a recap afterwards of this conversation, and when we're talking about being in production and selling our product to EV producers.
Well, that's great. Well, I'd just like to thank you for being on the show. Very exciting. I'm going to be so excited to have you back in the future. I'd like to wish you a great day from Betweenplays Stock Market Strategies.
Thank you so much for having me, Albert. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Hello to everyone out there. Just taking 2 seconds of your time and asking you to hit the subscribe and the like button.
I'd like to also direct you to betweenplays.com, www.betweenplays.com, where we put up many different articles. We have 3 different writers at the moment, and we're trying to up the authors. And go to our Twitter account for like really quick information at betweenplays1, and we'll be able to get people to pre-market information and whatever comes along that is important to macroeconomics, microeconomics. As we say here, our motto: research, prepare, plan, execute. Always do your due diligence, and stay strong, everybody. Stay strong.
Cautionary statements regarding forward-looking information and other company information. This news release includes forward-looking information and forward-looking statements, collectively forward-looking information, with respect to the company within the meaning of Canadian securities laws. Forward-looking information is typically identified by words such as believe, expect, anticipate, intend, estimate, postulate, and similar expressions, or are those which by their nature refer to future events. This information represents predictions, and actual events or results may differ materially. Forward-looking information may relate to the company's future outlook and anticipated events, and may include statements regarding the financial results, future financial position, expected growth of cash flows, business strategy, budgets, projected costs, projected capital expenditures, taxes, plans, objective industry trends, and growth opportunities of the company and the projects in which it holds royalty interests. While management considers these assumptions to be reasonable based on information available, they may prove to be incorrect. Forward-looking statements involve known and unknown risks, uncertainties, and other factors, which may cause the actual results, performance, or achievements of the company or these projects to be materially different from any future results, performance, or achievements expressed or implied by the forward-looking statements. These risks, uncertainties, and other factors include, but are not limited to, risks associated with general economic conditions, adverse industry events, marketing costs, loss of markets, future legislation and regulatory developments involving the renewable energy industry, inability to access sufficient capital from internal and external sources, and or inability to access sufficient capital on favorable terms, the mining industry generally, the COVID-19 pandemic, recent market volatility, income tax and regulatory matters, the ability of the company or the owners of these projects to implement their business strategies, including expansion plans, competition, currency, and interest rate fluctuations, and the other risks. The reader is referred to the company's most recent filings on SEDAR, as well as other information filed with the OTC over-the-counter markets for a more complete discussion of all applicable risk factors and their potential effects, copies of which may be accessed through the company's profile page at www.sedar.com and at otcmarkets.com.